I chased after Dylan for 7 years. After he finally agreed to marry me, his ex came back from abroad. He said, all these years, you were just filling in her spot. Now that she's back, she doesn't even want the title, so don't be petty. I stayed silent. His friends chimed in to smooth things over. Come on, what man these days doesn't have a few lovers on the side? Dylan only has one. You should be grateful, Dylan said coldly. Can't accept it? Then call off the wedding. That was exactly what I had been waiting for. Okay. I turned and left. Behind me, his friends mocked. Damn, she's got some backbone. How long do you think it'll take before she comes crawling back this time? Dylan let out a scoff. Last time it was 3 days. This time she's acting tougher, maybe a week. The whole group burst into laughter. Half a month later, Dylan reached out to me for the first time. Clara, I've given you enough time to reflect. If your head's cooled down, come back. James wrapped an arm around me, took a photo of the marriage certificate I had just received, and sent it over. Dylan, there's a cooling off period for divorce, but not for getting married. Chapter 1. I had chased after Dylan for 7 years. I stayed by his side until my mother, who had been in a vegetative state, passed away long ago. I had stopped struggling and simply accepted the life arranged for me. Then, just as he finally agreed to marry me, his ex returned. He even organized a party to welcome Amanda back. Someone asked, now that you and Amanda are rekindling things, will Clara accept it? Dylan gave a dismissive chuckle. She'll fuss a little, then accept it. Honestly, I don't even know what I've been doing with her these past years. It's been duller than plain water. One of his friends teased. No way. Clara actually looks pretty fiery, the kind that makes you want to conquer her. The man rubbed his hands together, practically drooling in a lecherous way. By the way, if she doesn't accept it and you two break up, I'm making my move. Dylan curled his lips into a confident smile. Go ahead. If you win her over, I'll gift you a sports car as a wedding present. The group exploded with excitement, cheers, bets, and raised glasses. I bet she'll be mad for 2 days and then calm herself down. I'm praying she doesn't accept it. I want to chase her. They even made a bet. Whoever managed to win me over would take me for a ride in the car Dylan gifted and hook up with me in it. I arrived late from working overtime and just happened to hear everything at the door. I turned and left. No one noticed. With nothing holding me back anymore, I suddenly felt lighter. I had long given up resisting and accepted a life with a foreseeable end, but now, it felt like I could see a glimmer of hope. There was a faint exhilaration, like shedding a heavy burden. After that day, Dylan took Amanda to parties everywhere, openly showing her off. He gave her a villa, luxury cars, jewelry, diamonds, like money meant nothing. Everyone congratulated him for finally getting what he wanted and winning the beauty he loved. News like that spread quickly. Even Dylan's mother found out. I said nothing. I stopped picking out wedding dresses. At another gathering, Dylan told me directly in front of everyone, all these years, you were just filling in her spot. Now that she's back and doesn't even want the title, don't be petty. I met his gaze in silence. The room fell quiet, tension thick in the air. His friends quickly tried to mediate. What man doesn't have a few lovers these days? Dylan only has one. You should be satisfied, Dylan said mercilessly. If you can't accept it, then call off the engagement. That was the line I had been waiting for. Okay. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. It caught him off guard. Dylan shot to his feet, glaring. Are you sure? Clara, I'll give you another chance. I cut him off. I can't accept you having anyone else besides me. I choose to call off the engagement. His anger vanished instantly, replaced by a subtle sense of satisfaction. His brows furrowed slightly, as if suppressing smugness, wearing an expression that said, I knew you were just being dramatic. Magnanimously, he said, I know you're just being impulsive right now. Take a few days to reflect. When you calm down, come back to me. I'm serious, I replied. Let's call off the engagement and part on good terms. Dylan shrugged indifferently. Suit yourself. Then it's off. I smiled politely. I have something to do. I'll be going now. Behind me, his friends mocked again. Damn, she's got some spine. Well, she was engaged, had to act tough. She even said he can't have anyone but her, haha. So how long do you think it'll take before she comes crawling back this time? Dylan sneered. Last time it was 3 days. This time she's acting tougher, maybe a week. True. Remember how crazy she was chasing you in high school? You hooked up with your senior and dumped her, and she came back begging for reconciliation in 3 days. I quickened my pace, tears streaming down my face, yet the corners of my lips lifted uncontrollably. 7 years. At last. The end had come. Chapter 2. I sent the recording to Dylan's mother. This time, she said nothing and silently accepted my departure. The bride price and all the gifts from these past years, I returned them all to her. I also repaid part of the medical expenses and promised to pay off the rest in installments. I felt like a trapped beast brought back to full strength, finally breaking free from its cage. A huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Though I felt a trace of unease about the future, I was firm in my choice, stripping away everything that didn't belong to me. What I truly owned after these 7 years was just a stack of certificates, my phone, and my ID, and the apartment my mother left behind. That night, I grabbed my phone and went out, heading to a bar called Time, owned by my best friend. She wrapped an arm around me and led me inside, seating me in a front booth like some ancient brothel madam. We just got a new batch of male models, top-tier looks and bodies. Our major shareholder will definitely be satisfied. I said, don't do anything illegal. This area is full of college students. She grinned, relax. They sing and dance, we just appreciate their looks and incredible bodies. Back in college, my best friend insisted on starting a bar business, but her family refused to support her financially. At the time, Dylan's mother was covering my mom's medical bills regularly, so I didn't need to step in. I had saved up some money, feeling hopeless about a life that was already planned out, and harboring a bit of selfishness, I gave all of it to her. I didn't participate in management, only offered suggestions. The bar was right next to our university, and half the staff were students working part-time. Over the years, business kept getting better. The dividends I received grew larger too. Later, I opened a cafe next to the bar called Corner. But during the year after graduation, I had been constantly revolving around Dylan and his mother, only occasionally coming by to relax. My best friend snapped her fingers at the bartender. One cocoon breaker. Please, don't say I'm not looking out for you. Tonight I invited a few rich young guys to drink. In terms of character and capability, they're 10 times better than that jerk Dylan. I laughed and pushed her away. Behave yourself. Those so-called rich young men were all former classmates. Without that connection, I wouldn't even qualify to meet them. But after they sat down, someone else arrived. Long legs, a cold, expressionless face, an imposing aura. He took a seat across from me. I picked up my glass and happened to look up, then froze. My best friend blinked in disbelief. Is that James? One of the guys said. Yeah. He just landed yesterday. There's a collaboration project with my family, and he's been stuck in back-to-back meetings. You happened to invite me, so I brought him along to relax. James glanced at me briefly before looking away, his attitude extremely indifferent. As they chatted, my best friend pulled me aside and whispered, I'm 1000% sure he's here for you. I took a sip of the cocktail. Cocoon breaker. It tasted rough at first, then burned down my throat. Ignoring my pounding heartbeat, I gave a bitter smile. If he's really here for me, it's probably for revenge. My best friend ordered another drink, Moonlight. I glanced at James again. He showed no reaction, occasionally sipping warm water. Maybe he really didn't care anymore. No one holds on to their foolish past forever. When Moonlight came up, it became a topic of conversation. One of the guys, a bit shy, asked me, Clara, can I add you on WeChat? The air pressure around us suddenly dropped. A chill crept up the back of my neck, like I'd been thrown into a freezer. Forcing myself, I handed over my phone for him to scan the QR code. It felt like a pair of eyes followed the movement of my hand. I grew inexplicably nervous and lowered my head to take a sip of Moonlight. It started slightly sour, then a gentle sweetness spread across my mouth, ending with the warmth of vodka lingering behind. My best friend leaned over and whispered, the way he looks at you, it's like he wants to devour you. I took another sip. Forget it, she said. Don't. That one scrawny kid has turned into a cold, High-end version of a male idol. You should enjoy him first and think later. Dylan, that trash, is crawling back to his ex. You should reclaim your moonlight. You deserve the best. Want me to spike his drink and knock him out? I burst out laughing. Everyone turned to look at me. My best friend immediately behaved, awkwardly scanning the room. Haha. Clara's drunk. I'll call a ride to take her home. I wasn't drunk, just felt light. Almost floating. James's cold face swayed in the glow of the lights, like the moon drifting on water. Then I heard his low, icy voice. I'll take her. Chapter 3. I was pulled up, then lifted into his arms. My mind was clear, but my emotions were amplified. James placed me in the passenger seat and fastened my seatbelt. Just as he was about to close the door, I couldn't help but grab his hand. I looked at him steadily. Are you single now? Do you still like me? My eyes suddenly burned. Forget it. Why stir up this once calm water again? I'm sorry to trouble you to give me a ride, I said. James closed the door but didn't get into the car. He stood outside, smoking. He held the cigarette between his thumb and index finger, exhaling slowly. Yet his gaze was fixed on me, deep as an icy abyss, as if he wanted to devour me whole. Just like my best friend said, his eyes looked like he wanted to eat me alive. The alcohol hit me. It felt like a thorn was stuck in my throat, impossible to swallow, impossible to pull out. Unwilling, something crashed violently inside my chest, like a spring bud buried for 10 years suddenly breaking through the soil, painful, yet desperate to grow. My heartbeat pounded so loudly it rang in my ears. James only took a few puffs before stubbing out the cigarette in a trash can and getting back into the car. Gathering my courage in one breath, I asked, James, can I pursue you? His hand on the steering wheel moved slightly, his eyes filled with emotions I couldn't read. He reached out, his palm brushing along my neck, then gripping my chin, his index finger tracing the edge of my lips. A flicker of expectation flashed through his gaze, yet he asked harshly, Are you trying to mess with me again? James and I were middle school classmates. The first time I met him was on a stormy day. I had been ordered by a group of rich girls to take out the trash in the pouring rain. That's when I saw someone lying in the garbage dump ahead, his hands and feet bound. I thought it was a murder scene. I screamed and was about to run. The boy spoke in a lifeless tone. Don't be afraid, I'm alive. I untied the ropes on his hands and feet, and we went together to a small pavilion nearby to take shelter from the rain. I took out 2 lollipops from my pocket and gave him one. 2 drenched, miserable kids sat there quietly, eating candy and watching the rain, both understanding each other's situation without needing words. It was said he shared the same surname as the powerful Law family in a city, which was why he became a target of bullying. The Law family's young heir would call him a bastard and often team up with other spoiled rich kids to beat him. I saw James Law again in the cafeteria. The young heir kicked over his meal and even tried to shove his head into the leftover food bin. Just then, school leaders walked by, so the heir left with his group. I pulled James up to the rooftop of the cafeteria and handed him my lunchbox. Can you help me share half of this? He devoured the food. After that, no matter where we were on campus, or even during morning exercises on the field, we would always meet each other's gaze instantly, then quietly look away, like 2 people who would never intersect. Yet for those 3 years, we kept each other company on that rooftop. By the 3rd year of middle school, his features had sharpened, and his limbs had grown long and strong. The kid had become unexpectedly handsome. One day, while he had his eyes closed, I leaned in and kissed his cheek on impulse. He opened his eyes, and I nearly exploded from embarrassment. James's face flushed red as he stared at me. Do you want to date? Caught red-handed, I stammered through the shame. It's too early, isn't it? So we made a promise to get into the same high school, and then secretly start dating. But life never goes as planned. That summer after middle school graduation, my mother was in a car accident and fell into a vegetative state. My father's company also ran out of funds, but he refused to declare bankruptcy, which meant taking on enormous debt. Desperate, he came up with a brilliant solution: marry me off to a 60-year-old businessman as his new wife. That would fix the company's finances, cover my mother's medical expenses, and allow me to continue my education. That was when Dylan's mother approached me. She needed someone obedient, resilient, and capable of keeping her son in check. She arranged for me to attend Dylan's high school and pursue him. At that time, James and I had both been accepted into one of the top 4 high schools in a city with excellent grades. But I had no choice, either marry the 60-year-old man or pursue Dylan. I chose the latter. James came to me and said, "The 2 schools aren't far apart. I can come find you after school every day." Suppressing my pain, I said, "Don't come find me anymore. I'm pursuing someone else." He insisted, his eyes reddening. He flirts with a lot of girls. Chapter 4. In high school, Dylan had a great family background and good looks. His only flaw was that he was a total flirt. While pursuing Amanda, he also kept ambiguous relationships with multiple girls. Even so, countless girls still threw themselves at him. I was one of them. He neither accepted nor rejected me. He ate the breakfasts I brought him, took the water I handed him during basketball games, and let me wipe his sweat. I remembered how Dylan's mother had calmly analyzed that my mom's hospital expenses would cost as much as $2 million a year, so I forced a smile and said, "As long as I'm not his girlfriend, I still have a chance." James left. His back looked so lonely and desolate. During those 3 years of high school, he came to see me countless times. Every single time, he left disappointed. Finally, after graduation, Dylan's mother stopped forcing things, but just then, Amanda went abroad, and Dylan suddenly agreed to date me. On that same day, James asked me, "Why does it have to be him?" My heart was already dead. I love him. He's rich, powerful, and good-looking. That day, James held onto my hand for a long time without letting go. His gaze was stubborn and full of pain. Eventually, he gave up and went abroad. Dylan and I attended the same university. During college, Dylan got a hotel room with a senior girl. At first, he hid it. Later, he became completely open about it. I had already prepared myself to stay entangled with him, but I couldn't accept a third person in our relationship. When Dylan's mother found out, she said, "He's just not settled yet. He never said he wanted to break up with you." Proud and stubborn, I took it upon myself to break up with him. When my father found out, he slapped me. "You're living in blessing and don't even realize it." Without Dylan, where would your mother's medical expenses come from? How would the company have recovered? Without him, this family would have fallen apart long ago. Whether you kneel and beg for forgiveness or sell yourself, I don't care. You must get back together with him. Hadn't this family already fallen apart? In the 2nd year after my mother became vegetative, he had already brought his mistress home and even had 2 children with her. But thinking about my mother's medical expenses, I had no choice but to go back to Dylan and ask for reconciliation. He was drinking with his friends at a private club, laughing as he said, "Baby, if you want to chase me, then chase me. You think you can just break up whenever you want? I gave you the title of girlfriend, you should be grateful, not push your luck and try to control my freedom. Got it?" "I'm sorry," I said. One of his friends sneered. "Oh, please. Anyone can say sorry. It's just words, completely meaningless." Dylan thought for a moment, then nodded. "True. If you kneel, I'll get back together with you." Fate played its cruel joke. Just then, Dylan's mother messaged me, saying my mom had been sent to the ICU again. I dropped to my knees. The crowd erupted in cheers. My mom was saved. From then on, Dylan behaved himself for a while until my mother passed away. I willingly accepted staying with him. Dylan's mother said her son had finally settled down. She sincerely thanked me and even wanted to cultivate me. Until Amanda came back. James's eyes turned red, just like the day I rejected him years ago. As expected, alcohol gives people courage. I had been too impulsive and presumptuous. "I'm sorry. He suddenly kissed me, clumsy, yet burning hot. His hand slid down again, trembling slightly as it caressed my neck. My body went limp, drowsiness washing over me in waves. When I woke up, it took me a few seconds to remember where I was, but there was no one beside the bed. I was about to get up when I suddenly realized, under the covers, I was completely naked. Yet there was no discomfort in my body, no signs of a hangover either. Chapter 5. Before I fell asleep, the only thing I remembered was him pinning me down and kissing me. At that moment, James walked in, dressed in a black shirt, effortlessly refined, reserved, elegant, almost ascetic. He held a glass of water in his hand. After I finished drinking, I asked, "Where are my clothes?" He replied matter-of-factly, "Threw them away." Wait, by normal logic, shouldn't they be washed? Before I could ask anything else, he asked me first, "Do you have your ID with you?" My handbag was right on the nightstand, bag there. ID there. Yes. Find something to wear first. Then come downstairs for breakfast. After he left and closed the door, I went to check his wardrobe. It was full of shirts and suits. I put on one of his shirts. It barely covered my hips. So embarrassing. I went into the bathroom. The reflection in the mirror was a complete mess. There were faint bite marks around my face, and my neck was covered in varying shades of hickeys. Just 2 cocktails, and I completely lost myself. After all these years, James had become a bit of a menace. I took a shower as well. I must have taken too long, because I vaguely heard James calling me from outside. I thought I imagined it until he suddenly walked into the bathroom. Just like that, I stood in front of him, completely exposed. He inhaled sharply, then blushed, pretending to stay calm. For a moment, I didn't even know where to cover myself. 2 seconds later, my voice rang out in the bathroom, full of embarrassment and anger. "James, you pervert." I didn't put the shirt back on. Instead, I slipped into his bathrobe, loose, but it covered me completely. At the dining table, he ate breakfast as if no one else was there, ignoring my glare entirely. It was like punching cotton, completely ineffective. I had no choice but to sit down and eat. After breakfast, someone delivered a row of white dresses in different styles, along with brand new makeup. I chose an off-shoulder dress, deliberately exposing the marks he left. Let's see how calm he stays. James stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, one hand in his pocket, the other holding his phone as he spoke. This man had become even more attractive. The youthful edge hadn't faded, yet maturity had already settled in. When he turned slightly to look at me, the black shirt moved with his body, his back sharp and defined like a blade. The moment our eyes met, he said, "Put on light makeup. We're going out." The bite marks on my face were faint. Light makeup was enough to cover them. The marks on my neck varied in intensity. Not knowing where we were going, I applied a thick layer of foundation to hide them. Before leaving, he confirmed several times, "Did you bring your ID?" I nodded firmly, until we arrived in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. I stared at him in shock, my heart pounding. "Are you sure?" James looked indifferent and asked calmly, "Do you dare?" After getting the marriage certificate, I barely had time to look at it before James took it away without hesitation. His tone softened ever so slightly. "I have a business trip this afternoon for a week. I'll be handing over all my overseas work. Delete the contacts you added last night." I was still a bit dazed. "Oh." He lowered his gaze and looked at me. "Where to?" "I'll drop you off. Corner, my cafe." Back in the car, I still felt like I was drifting. When we arrived, he didn't let me get out immediately. This time, his hand clasped the back of my neck, without allowing any resistance. He kissed me until my tongue went numb. I rushed out of the car almost like I was escaping, only daring to look back once I reached the shop. James hadn't left yet, still that distant, refined figure. His gaze burned as it locked onto mine. My heart pounded like thunder, and I forced myself to suppress the chaos inside. Then he drove away. Only then did I realize I didn't have any way to contact him. We were married, but had no contact information. I didn't delete the contact of the rich guy from last night. Instead, I asked him for James's contact. On the first day of being married, I sent a friend request. Chapter 6. That afternoon, my best friend rushed into the cafe, more excited than if she picked up money off the street or hooked up with an international male model. So, did old feelings rekindle last night? Was it a night of passion? I smiled, my face heating up a little. "No, but we kissed." She narrowed her eyes. "I don't believe it. Based on my extensive experience with the way he looked at you last night, there's no way it ended without going all night. If it wasn't a wild, unforgettable night, why didn't you even reply to my messages?" I took out my phone, didn't really check. When I opened it, I saw several messages from her. I heard James came back to go after the Chan family. Could he be here because of you? No reply. Did your romantic night already begin? I looked up at her. That's unnecessary. Besides, we got married today. She scratched her head, slipping into deep confusion. Got married? Why does that sound familiar? Then she suddenly screamed, "What the hell? You got married? You're saying after not seeing each other for years, one night of lip chemistry and you got married?" I nodded. Even now, it still didn't feel real. She clicked her tongue in admiration. James has been in love and unable to have you for years. The moment he found an opening, he locked it down immediately. She kept pestering me to see the marriage certificate, and I awkwardly explained everything. She gave me a thumbs up. That night, I changed into my bar uniform and stayed with her at the bar. Meanwhile, Dylan, after finishing up with Amanda at a hotel, sat by the floor-to-ceiling window, smoking. This past week had undoubtedly been the most satisfying time for him. The woman he once couldn't have had now actively pursuing him. Endless indulgence in nightlife. Entangled with his lover to his heart's content. His desires were fulfilled. Both body and mind should have felt completely satisfied. But inside, he felt strangely empty, like something was still lacking. He smoked, growing more irritated the more he thought about it. Nothing felt right. His phone spun in his hand as he tapped it against the table. Suddenly, a new message popped up in the group chat. One of his friends tagged him, "Dylan, your fiancé is actually working as a server at time." There was also a 10-second video. Clara, dressed in a black work uniform, her slim waist accentuated, carried a capable, sharp kind of beauty. She smiled as she spoke to someone off camera. She was smiling. She actually smiled, so she'd rather lower herself to working in a bar, putting on a smile for others, than bow her head. The group started egging him on. "So, Dylan, since she's so determined not to come back, can we go after her now?" "I'm interested too," Dylan sent a voice message, his tone furious. "Do whatever you want." He replayed the video over and over, his expression growing darker each time. His so-called friends continued suggesting terrible ideas. "Dylan, your birthday's next week. How about we all go to Time tonight to support your girl?" He gritted his teeth and typed, "No one goes. No one is allowed to go. If she wants to degrade herself like that, I'll see how long she can keep it up. After sending the message, he stood up and smashed his phone. Clara had really grown a spine, an entire week without a single call or message. In their circle, what man didn't keep women on the side? Yet she had to act so high and mighty. He had already given her a title, and she still dared to make demands. Dylan's expression was as cold as a Russian winter. This time, even if she knelt, he wouldn't forgive her so easily. I was planning to expand the cafe. After finishing a proposal, I made myself a cup of coffee. When I turned around, I saw James sitting by the window in a tailored suit. The evening glow slanted across his sharp brow, softening his cold aura. Over the past week, our conversations on WeChat had been nothing more than polite, distant greetings. Yet at this moment, I suddenly felt something like nervousness at returning home. James lifted his gaze, his deep eyes reflecting the sunset. I walked over with the coffee, handed it to him, and sat across from him, looking at the most familiar stranger, my husband. Awkward, unnatural. Before I could even think of something polite to say, James spoke. "What time can you leave?" He naturally picked up the coffee and drank, his Adam's apple moving as he swallowed. His hands were beautiful, long fingers, defined joints, slightly fleshed, the kind of hands that, in novels, could. I swallowed unconsciously. James pushed the coffee back toward me and tapped the table lightly with 2 fingers. I snapped back to my senses, flustered. Anytime. Chapter 7. Pretending to be busy. I picked up my coffee and took a sip. It felt like every time I had improper thoughts, he would catch me. He said, "There's a family dinner at 8. When do you want to leave?" A family dinner? I instantly grew nervous. He added, "It's fine, just a meal. We'll also discuss the wedding date." After finishing the coffee, we went back to Blue Sky to change. Blue Sky was his villa. Following his instructions, I had gradually moved my belongings there. When I returned, I was stunned. The walk-in closet now had several rows of gowns suitable for all kinds of formal occasions. On one side, matching jewelry was neatly arranged, diamonds, emeralds, and other precious gems. It suddenly hit me that I had never really understood James's family background. Back then, my feelings had been simple, I just liked his face. James was on the phone. As he passed by me, he casually lifted my chin and kissed me. I changed into a long dress and put on a pair of pearl earrings. Elegant, understated, yet appropriate. James was still on the phone, so I brought my laptop to the study and discussed cooperation with a coffee supplier. His study was enormous. With a massive rosewood display shelf, his collection of books rivaled half a library. After sending the contract, I looked for a book to read. I must have touched something by accident. The bookshelf slowly split apart, revealing an elevator door. Startled, I turned around and saw James standing behind me. He walked over, as if making a reckless decision, and said hoarsely, "Do you dare come down with me?" Before I fully processed it, we were already standing inside the elevator. When the doors opened again, lights came on, revealing a vast space ahead, pink walls, a pink bed. I froze in shock. I grabbed his hand, my palms sweating. "I'm scared." James gave a bitter smile. This was the darkest thought I had when I was at my most desperate. I wanted to destroy the Chan family and keep you by my side, but I was afraid of hurting you. He turned his head slightly, lowering his gaze to look at me deeply. "Luckily, you're willing." I stood on tiptoe, wrapping my arms around his neck. My voice choked. "I'm sorry." He held me tightly, his voice hoarse. "You don't need to be. I just want you back." He kissed me again, forceful, intense. I felt like I was drowning in that kiss. I pushed him away, gasping for air. "Don't we still have the family dinner?" The Bentley drove into a manor, pulling up in front of a magnificent hall. Familiar faces appeared one after another, all powerful figures I had only ever seen on television. The law family of a city, a clan intertwined with both politics and business. I also saw the former young heir of the law family. He had long lost the arrogance he once had. Sensing my unease, James comforted me softly. "Don't be afraid. He's nothing more than a name now." Later, I learned that James Law was an illegitimate child. His mother had died during childbirth. In circles like this, illegitimate children were often despised and oppressed. But everything changed when someone powerful supported you. From high school onward, James had caught the attention and recognition of the old master of the Law family. During university, he took over the failing hotel group of the Law family. Not only did he turn its value around, but he also built it into an international luxury hotel brand. He was eventually appointed as the new head of the group. The elders were reserved yet warm and approachable. They had likely already investigated my background, as they avoided discussing my family. Instead, they only asked about my plans before and after marriage. When we left, I received a generous red envelope. Back at Blue Sky, financial news pushed notifications about fluctuations in the Chan family's stock. I remembered my best friend mentioning that James had come back to target the Chan family. James, dressed in sleepwear, returned to the room from the study. I asked, "James, are you manipulating the Chan family's stock?" He didn't deny it. Instead, he asked, "Are you going to plead for him?" For all these years, my mother's medical expenses had been paid by Dylan's mother. Though there were conditions, I truly had needed that money desperately back then. I wasn't a saint. The situation was too complicated. Struggling, I said. "Dylan's mother did help me a lot." Before I could finish, James pulled me into his arms and kissed me without giving me a chance to continue. His arms tightened, as if afraid I might disappear. When I responded, his hands began to move along my body, slowly tracing downward. I clutched his clothes, letting out a soft, breathless sound. His voice dropped dangerously low as he asked, almost wickedly, "Do you like my hands? Do you like them?" "Good, now it's my turn." Chapter 8. I felt unbearably embarrassed. So ashamed I started crying. It felt like he was really experienced. Just felt like it, because he finished, pretty quickly. I was still lost in lingering desire, staring at him blankly. Turns out, we were both beginners. James seemed to misunderstand my annoyed. He lightly bit my cheek. After that, we got more skilled, more absorbed, and it lasted longer and longer. We finished at dawn, and I didn't wake up until the afternoon. Then I realized there was a ring on my ring finger. Before Dylan's birthday, everyone gathered at a high-end club to celebrate. Waiting for midnight to officially mark the occasion, he didn't bring a female companion today, nor did he bring Amanda. It was, more or less, giving Clara away to save face. Everyone was playing games, drinking, or flirting with their companions. Laughter filled the room. Dylan, however, drank alone, refreshing his phone again and again. Midnight was approaching. Clara was completely silent, like she had disappeared. Victor, who was well-versed in social circles and skilled at reading the room, tried to please him. Sis-in-law must be on her way. I sent her the club address. Everyone seemed to catch on and chimed in. Yeah, she always sends birthday wishes right on time every year, along with cake and gifts. Dylan is number one in her heart. Dylan's expression turned frighteningly dark. He sneered. On her way? It's been half a month since she showed up. You guys can go after her if you want. The group exchanged awkward glances. Come on, we were just joking. Clara is our sis-in-law. A brother's woman is off limits. Victor pulled out his phone. 10 minutes to midnight. Maybe she got lost. I'll ask. Dylan clenched his phone, saying nothing. The private room fell silent, making the ringtone especially sharp. Again and again, but no one picked up. Someone joked awkwardly. She's not still working at the bar. Is she? Doesn't a waitress have night shifts? Maybe she's waiting for Dylan to call? Dylan sat there arrogantly, unmoving, as if saying, keep calling until she picks up tonight. After who knows how many tries, the call finally connected. Clara said, Victor? What's up? Victor finally breathed a sigh of relief. Sis-in-law, it's Dylan's birthday today. Are you stuck on the road? Clara replied, No, we're not together anymore, so I won't be going. Oh, just tell him happy birthday for me. Victor panicked. No, wait, don't. She hung up decisively. The atmosphere in the room turned ice cold. Victor felt like dying. Why was navigating this social circle so hard? Dylan spoke with an eerie calm, like the quiet before a storm. Not on the way. Huh? Dylan, maybe she wants you to call her. You know girls, they just want to be comforted. Dylan's facial muscles twitched slightly, his voice trembling faintly. Impossible. He wouldn't call. It wasn't even about making her admit fault. He just wanted Clara to accept that. In this social circle, it was normal for men to bring a few female companions to events. Dylan believed Clara would never truly leave him. She had chased him for 3 years in high school. In his sophomore year, when he cheated with a senior, there was even a time he forgot to buy protection and made her go out to buy it and bring it home. Clara, overwhelmed at the time, decisively broke up with him, but within 3 days, she came running back, practically groveling and begging to get back together. She couldn't live without him. I hung up the phone and turned around to see James standing there in his pajamas. His gaze was sharp and cold, his lowered hands stretched open, his expression dark as he asked, You're going out? I picked up the cake on the marble coffee table, preparing to put it in the fridge. Yeah, I need to go to time later. His body tensed. He walked over, grabbed my wrist, and sneered to hide the panic spilling out. Don't lie, we're already married. His grip tightened, but his tone was mixed with fear and a kind of humility. If he turns back, are you going to divorce me? You always choose him. Only then did I realize he had misunderstood. I quickly explained, No, but he cut me off. A kind of madness like he was tearing himself apart. I'd rather die than divorce. We'll just torment each other like this for the rest of our lives. My heart twisted in pain. Chapter 9. 3 years of rejection. 4 years of waiting. He was convinced that the one I loved was Dylan, and he had already given up hope on me. I wrapped my arms around him, rubbing my cheek against his. The cake was sent by Jessica to congratulate us. Jessica's exact words were, Congratulations to our Clara for finally finding happiness. James tightened his hold around my waist, his arms pulling me closer and closer. I tilted my head and kissed his cheek. I won't agree to a divorce either. I was just going to put the cake in the fridge. I'm going to time to deal with a fight. I've been handling the bar's PR issues for the past few years. James lifted me into his arms and carried me upstairs to the bedroom. I'll have my assistant take care of it. As he contacted his assistant, I also sent Jessica a message. The moment I sent it, he pushed me down, one hand pinning both of my wrists above my head. James moved with a fierce intensity, urgent, angry. His kisses carried a devouring force. They landed on my cheeks, neck, and collarbone in a chaotic rhythm, his hands moving restlessly. I wanted to soothe him, but I couldn't find the space, only passively enduring everything. I like you, I said. I've always liked you. James's body trembled slightly, and he roughly pulled off my clothes. Between uneven breaths, he let out a self-mocking laugh. No need for that. What followed on the bed was a tangle driven by resentment, a passion laced with anger, a kind of madness stripped of reason. The overwhelming tide of emotion drowned us in a mix of love and hate. I could clearly feel his unease, his fear, but he no longer believed me. What should I do? We didn't stop until 5 in the morning. James held Clara, who had fallen asleep from exhaustion, and kissed her tear-streaked eyelashes. His lost rationality had returned, and yet he felt disgusted with himself for how shameless he had been, taking advantage of her vulnerability, deceiving her into getting married, coaxing her into bed. He had even forced her to say she liked him. How could she possibly like someone as dark as him? But she shouldn't like someone so fickle either. That man didn't deserve her in any way. He treated her poorly and always made her sad. If she couldn't be happy with anyone else, then she might as well come back to him. Every rejection during those 3 years of high school had been like a knife stabbed into his heart. Each cut hurt so much, yet it was never enough. He was never willing to give up. He kept looking for her, waiting for the day she would finally kill him with those wounds. Until she started dating that man. James realized he hadn't died, he just could no longer feel the sunshine. Clara said she liked money and power, so he went to obtain them. He endured in silence for years, and finally gained both wealth and authority. This time, he came back to destroy the Chan family, to leave them with no way out, so she would return to him on her own. On the second day after he returned, Clara broke up with that man. He had once hated the unfairness of this world. Now, the world seemed willing to revolve around him for once. If he couldn't seize this opportunity, then he, James, truly deserved to be alone forever. The person in his arms suddenly moved, reaching into the air as she whimpered softly. James. His breathing grew heavy as he pressed a series of kisses onto her face, whispering, "Don't leave me." When I woke up in the afternoon, my body felt like it had fallen apart. My eyes and lips were swollen and red. James had already gone to the company. How could someone stay up all night and not be tired? Why was his body so strong? My whole body was covered in marks, my cheeks, neck, and collarbone all bore traces of his bites. Why did he like biting so much? Today definitely wasn't a day to go out. I could only work from home. The coffee supplier had been finalized, and everything else could now proceed. After handling everything, I began thinking about how to solve James's severe lack of security. My gaze drifted to the bookshelf in front of me again. After a moment of hesitation, I opened it once more and took the elevator down. A massive enclosed space appeared before me, bright as daylight, with freely circulating air, nothing like the stuffiness of a basement. A magnificent pink castle. Walking up to one of the bookshelves, I was surprised to find high school textbooks and stacks of exam papers. I picked up a book and flipped it open. Inside, it said, Clara. My face instantly flushed red. Chapter 10. Uncertain. I flipped open one book after another. They were all the high school books I had once sold. My eyes gradually grew warm and moist. As I walked further in, I saw my old water bottle, a broken hair tie, an old photo album. There was a photo of me in my second year of middle school, receiving third prize at a sports meet. In the bottom right corner of the photo, there was a thumbprint. When I turned it over, I found words written on the back. On this barren land, you are my last rose. A sour ache spread through me, tightening around my throat. The next photo was a picture of the two of us together. Finally graduated. We'll start dating as soon as school begins. After that, Every photo captured moments of me in high school, on campus, on the field, in the cafeteria, in the classroom. She doesn't want to date me early anymore. She's chasing someone else. I'm jealous to the point of madness. I want to kill. She doesn't seem to smile anymore. Why does it still hurt so much after rejecting me? Then there was a photo from the high school coming-of-age ceremony. I was holding a bouquet of black roses. 18-year-old Clara, holding my roses. Those roses were actually his. I had thought Dylan was the one who left them on my desk, wiping away the tears rolling down my face. I kept reading. Why am I still unhappy after getting the person I like? You're always so sad. Why not come back to me? Could you like me? I couldn't keep reading. I fled back to the study as if escaping. Curling up on the sofa, I clutched my aching chest. It felt like something had been hollowed out of me. I couldn't get up. Not long after, James appeared at the door of the study. His expression was filled with fear, as if his darkest side had been exposed, and as if he was afraid I would despise him and leave. You've seen it all. A dull, relentless pain spread through my heart. Crying, I said, I'm sorry. I really am sorry. James held me tightly, lost and anxious. Don't say sorry. Don't cry. Don't leave me. Don't force me. I won't be able to take it. He had misunderstood me again. I had no choice but to wrap my arms around his neck and silence him with a kiss. His lips were thin, soft. Back in middle school, I had wanted to touch those lips that never smiled. But in the end, I had only kissed his cheek. Once we both calmed down, I explained everything. James said, full of guilt and heartache, I'm sorry. I kissed him lightly and smiled. It's all in the past. Back then, we both had our own difficulties. I'm not pitiful, and you don't need to blame yourself. We're doing well now, the best present, the best version of us. James cupped my face, his thumbs gently brushing to the sides. You said you like me. I pretended to be serious and punched his chest lightly. You've never said it, but my heart was racing wildly. Like a startled deer, the feelings I had buried deep inside now felt free again. I think I can finally say it openly. I love you. We said it at the same time. That same tacit understanding from middle school returned, along with the same fluttering feeling. With the distance between us gone, James started acting shamelessly again, saying in a completely serious tone, you need to apply medicine there. He actually carried ointment with him and started right there on the sofa. Struggling, I kicked his face. You pervert. Dylan didn't go out to celebrate his birthday. He stayed home, throwing a tantrum. Clara hadn't chosen a date for the engagement. She even returned the bride price and all the gifts from over the years. Her father had also cut ties with her. There was no reason left to make her bow her head. He vented his anger at home, leaving the living room in a complete mess. In truth, he had never intended to keep any woman long-term. He was just playing around. From childhood until now, the only girlfriend he had ever acknowledged was her. He really had fallen for her back in high school. Dylan enjoyed being pursued by her. She was bolder and more passionate than other girls. No matter how he rejected her, she still liked him. The day he agreed to be with her, he had been happy too. Clara was romantic. On his 18th birthday, when his father was busy fooling around and his mother was focused on her career, ignoring him, she had bought him a cake just for him, simply hoping he would be happy. At meals, she peeled shrimp for him and cut crab legs for him. She patiently tutored him in English, even though he failed his CET 6 exam. She always encouraged him gently. When they first started dating, she used to smile. Her smile was healing. Anyone who saw it couldn't help but smile too. She also loved studying. Aside from classes, she was either in the library or on her way there. That was why, in his sophomore year, he cheated with a senior who always played games with him late at night. The night Clara broke up with him, he had been truly afraid. Chapter 11. He hadn't expected her to come back after just 3 days, even willing to kneel and beg to get back together. At an age when pride meant everything, she was willing to do so much for him. He had never experienced love like that before, so he devoted himself fully to the relationship, respecting all her wishes, including no sex before marriage. But after that incident, she never smiled again. Still, men have their needs. He kept suppressing them, until she proposed, and they finally got engaged. He brought up living together again, but she still refused. Just then, Amanda returned to the country, and on impulse, he showed off about the love he once had, but his mind was filled with her. After thinking it through carefully, Dylan realized that he had always been living inside her love. He didn't mind lowering his pride to coax her this time. She would come back obediently, maybe once she felt his sincerity. She would even agree to live together early. His blood surged with excitement as he eagerly dialed her number. The moment the call connected, Dylan felt a rush of anticipation. Clara must have been waiting for him to comfort her. But when the call went through and no one spoke, irritation rose within him. The words that came out instead were, "Clara, I've given you enough time to reflect. Once you've calmed down, come back." Just as he regretted his impulsiveness, a man's voice came from the phone. "Dylan, divorce requires a cooling-off period, but marriage doesn't." The first half of the sentence carried a teasing lilt. Almost amused, the latter half rose slightly, warm in tone, but just hearing another man's voice was enough to make Dylan feel like he had fallen into an ice cellar. If Clara had cheated on him, he would kill her. Through gritted teeth, Dylan demanded, "Who are you?" Clara replied, "He's my husband. Calling this late at night. Does Auntie have something urgent?" Dylan's heart shook violently. He tightened his grip on the phone, suppressing something as he lowered his voice to coax her. "Where are you? I'll come pick you up. We'll go choose your wedding dress and look at venues together." Clara's tone was calm, almost indifferent as she stated, "Dylan, I'm really married. If Auntie doesn't have anything important, I'm hanging up." Veins bulged on Dylan's forehead, his eyes turning red as he roared, "Clara!" The call was cut off. Beep, beep, beep. Dylan stood in the living room, frozen in confusion. Clara was so traditional, back when they were dating. Even holding hands or kissing would make her tremble. How could she marry a stranger in just 2 weeks? She must still be angry, so she found some random man at a bar to trick him. Dylan was certain that Clara was truly furious this time. He had always been the one girls coaxed, now he had to figure out how to coax Clara properly. A moment later, his phone rang again. His heart leapt into his throat. As if his thoughts had been proven right, Clara must have softened and was calling back to accept his apology. But when he saw it was Victor, disappointment flashed across his face. He answered irritably. Victor's voice was tense. "Dylan, did you see sis-in-law's WeChat post?" Dylan swallowed hard, panic creeping into his voice. "What post?" Victor stammered. It's sis-in-law. She posted a photo of a marriage certificate." He quickly added, "It might not be real. Photos can be edited these days." Dylan hung up and hurriedly opened Clara's WeChat. There was a photo of 2 small red marriage certificates crossed together. The names of the holders were clearly visible, Clara and James. The caption read, "It's us." Dylan threw his phone aside, his chest heaving violently as he kicked over a 60-kilogram solid wood tea table beside him. He grabbed whatever was within reach and hurled it at the glass display cabinet. The glass shattered, and all the valuable items inside crashed to the floor, reduced to worthless debris. James had finally taken out the little red marriage certificates he had been hiding. We lay on the bed, him holding me in one arm as we spread the certificates open and took a photo together, preparing to post it on WeChat. At that moment, Dylan's call came through. After a few words, James smugly hung up and casually blocked and deleted Dylan's contact. Then he posted the caption we had prepared and pulled me into a lingering kiss. Finally, he held me close and fell into a peaceful sleep. Chapter 12. I had thought that someone like Dylan, someone who had been pampered his whole life, used to being catered to, a high-end mighty rich young master, now that he had his so-called true love by his side and no more restraints, would become even more carefree and indulgent. I hadn't planned to make things ugly either. After all, we were still in the same city, but the very next day, the property management of my apartment called to say Dylan had come looking for me. I told them to pass along the message that he didn't need to contact me anymore. Unexpectedly, that night, Dylan went to Time to find me. Jessica would never help him contact me. Victor sent me a video of the disturbance at the club. "Sis-in-law, Dylan actually really loves you. Come quickly." James was busy with the transition of the Law family. They were planning to publicly announce his identity, so he had been coming home very late every day. I wanted to deal with this mess before he got back. to give him a sense of security. When I arrived at the bar, there were no customers. Jessica was leading the staff in a standoff against Dylan and his group. It looked like a gang confrontation. Jessica stood protectively in front of me. "Clara, you shouldn't have come. He wouldn't dare do anything to me." When Dylan saw me, anger mixed with wild joy flashed across his face. "Let's talk," I said calmly. "We've already parted on good terms. I'm married now. What's there to talk about?" "Rarely." He softened, coaxing me with focus and apparent affection. "Stop messing around. I know that photo was edited. I shouldn't have been fickle. I've decided to change. From now on, I'll treat you well. Come here. I'll take you back." Jessica blocked me, afraid I'd be swayed by him. I raised my hand, showing the ring on my finger. There's no need for me to fake a marriage certificate just to post it. I really had accepted him once, wanted to live a good life with him. But the moment he cheated on me again and made me kneel, that version of Clara who compromised died. Only when he agreed to part peacefully did I come back to life. Now, I just want to pursue the career I love and be with the person I love. Dylan's face turned deathly pale under the bright lights. He lowered his head, let out a helpless chuckle, then another heavier one. "Clara, you must have been tricked. You chased me in high school, stayed by my side all through college. You've barely met anyone. You don't know how dangerous the outside world is. People who come to bars aren't good people. He just thinks you're pretty and wants to sleep with you. People like that play around even more than I do. You can't handle it. No one cherishes something that comes too easily. Clara, you're always so naive. I don't mind that you betrayed me. I don't mind that you've been played and are no longer perfect." The naive one was clearly him, still unwilling to accept reality, clinging to self-deception. I glanced at the broken items around us and cut him off. "Dylan, whether you mind or not doesn't matter to me, but the damage you caused tonight, please compensate Jessica at market price. I need to go home. If my husband comes back and doesn't see me, he'll worry." As I stepped back, I bumped into a solid chest. A low voice called softly, "Wife." It was James. "How did he get here?" Dylan suddenly became agitated, trying to rush forward. "It's you tricked Clara." His roar carried a trace of grievance. The men behind him desperately held him back. "Dylan, calm down." James held my hand tightly. "I didn't trick her. I've liked her since middle school. I've loved her all this time. She's happy by my side. She's always been perfect, and she can remain innocent forever. It's you who didn't cherish her, didn't value her. You don't deserve my Clara." Dylan was completely enraged, almost hysterical. "Love? She's that beautiful. You just want to sleep with her. Ask the guys behind me, who doesn't want to sleep with her? If it weren't for my protection these past years, she would have been devoured long ago. You're just a despicable opportunist, taking advantage of the situation, stealing someone else's woman and still talking about love so righteously. Haven't you had enough of her yet?" James stepped forward and kicked him hard. Dylan was already quick-tempered and volatile. After his reckless words, even his own friends stopped holding him back. They all stepped aside, distancing themselves. He couldn't beat James at all. It turned into a one-sided beating. Chapter 13. I wouldn't say I was sad, just shocked by the extent of his shamelessness. Maybe all women looked like this in his eyes. Or maybe I had followed behind him for so long that he had come to look down on me from the core of his being. Jessica clearly wanted to cheer, but didn't dare to be too loud. Seeing that the fight had gone on long enough, I said, "That's enough. The Chan family only has one son. Don't actually beat him to death." Dylan panted heavily. "I won't let this go. Clara, you saw it. He made the first move." I took James's hand, checking him over. "Are you hurt anywhere?" James said, "My whole body hurts." Dylan shouted in frustration, "Clara, I'm the one who's hurt. It's me. It's only been half a month and you don't like me anymore? When I got hurt before, you were always the one who treated me." I turned to Jessica. "Call an ambulance." Jessica responded eagerly. "Got it." There was no need to consider past feelings anymore. I said coldly, "I never liked you, not once. And you didn't really like me either. You're just unwilling to accept it." Dylan froze for a moment. "Didn't like me? If you didn't like me, why did you chase me? Was it because my mom gave you money?" He thought for a moment, then let out a bitter laugh. So your refusal to have sex before marriage was fake. Saving yourself for him was the real reason. Clara replied. No, that was my personal principle. All these years, I truly wanted to build a life with you. Proposing to you was my own choice. But you chose a different way of living from me. That's why we parted peacefully, and why I finally had the chance to choose my own life. Dylan couldn't accept it. She had once been willing, she had almost been his. How had things ended up like this? He had always believed she loved him. Only now did he realize he was the real joke. The one who had fallen in love was himself. The one who had worn down her patience was himself. The one who couldn't let go was still himself. It was over. The certainty he once held was gone. Dylan was roughly dragged away by his friends. What lay between us, right and wrong, had been tangled through 3 years of high school and 4 years of college. Neither of us was perfect. We both had our flaws. Neither of us had the right to judge the other. The long silence between us finally came to an end tonight. I wouldn't erase that dim chapter of youth, nor would I deliberately hide it. I only hoped that if we met again, we could at least be decent people to each other. Dylan's mother was a business-minded woman. She had once invested in my father's project. It was a mutually beneficial partnership. Now that my father had grown old and could no longer generate profit for her, she had withdrawn her investment. When the company was on the brink of bankruptcy, I took over, adjusted the product line, introduced digital management, and finally brought it back to life. My father no longer had decision-making power. He only received enough dividends for living expenses, as if it were the support I provided him. My coffee business focused on affordability, targeting students. It emphasized a quiet study environment, and stores quickly expanded near universities in first and second-tier cities. I met Dylan's mother again at a business banquet. She said, "My instincts are always accurate. You're very capable. I thought you'd become the next me. Especially during those years. With that level of endurance, I knew you'd succeed no matter what you did." I replied, "I don't want to become a second you." She smiled faintly. "True, you know how to seize every opportunity. My husband is useless. My son is hopeless. Since I took control all these years, they no longer interfere with my life or career. Under my leadership, the Chan group has grown stronger and stronger. I have my own lover. When there's no better option, what I have now is the best choice. Yes, we had all once been bound by chains. She replaced her incompetent husband and took over the Chan group, pushing its value far beyond what it used to be. And I was fortunate enough to break free from those chains, to find myself again, build my own career, and be with the one I love. Chapter 14. It was said that after that night, Dylan Chan broke up with Amanda. After going through a few rich playboys within their social circle, Amanda eventually chose to marry an older man who had been married 3 times and already had 3 daughters. From time to time, stories would circulate about her scheming against her stepdaughters or tracking her husband to confront his mistresses, amusing gossip that everyone treated as after-dinner entertainment. Without money, Dylan had no autonomy in marriage. He was forced into an arranged marriage. Afterward, both sides lived their own lives, doing as they pleased, but he never smiled again. He often came to my cafe corner, sitting there in silence, staring blankly at the same spot. He once said, "I think I can finally understand you now." I never came to Corner alone anymore. James always accompanied me. Corner was the only store that displayed our wedding photos and snapshots of our sweet life together. James even introduced a special espresso sold exclusively to Dylan, priced at 250 yuan per cup, called Expired. Even though Dylan was so furious his eyes nearly popped out, he still insisted on buying that 250 yuan cup of expired coffee in a shop where everything else cost only 9 yuan, just so he could sit there and stare into space. At the end of the year, James and I held a grand wedding and received everyone's blessings. After marriage, we returned to an ordinary life. Like any young couple, we went on dates, watched movies, and wandered through shopping malls buying whatever we liked. Those years had truly frightened James. No matter how much I proved my love for him, he still felt uneasy deep down. We once talked about what he would have done if I had married Dylan that year. He said, "If he treated you well, if you were happy every day, then I would never come back to this country. Maybe one day he would meet another woman who made his heart flutter. Maybe he would spend his life alone. Maybe." James tightened his arms around me, resting his chin on top of my head, his breath warm. After a long time, so long I thought he had fallen asleep, I finally heard his low voice, mixed with the rhythm of his heartbeat. Clara. Don't lose me again. He took my hand, interlocking our fingers, gripping so tightly it felt as though we were trying to fuse into each other's very bones. This time, even death won't make me let go. Outside the window, the city lights stretched endlessly, like a sea of stars. The rose that had survived in barren soil had finally found a gardener willing to guard it with thorns.